Greetings, my chess friends. Today, we're going to talk about a true legend of the game with some very exciting chess. And if I were to ask most people what do they know about world champion Boris Spassky, they would say, I don't know, it was the guy that lost to Fischer. He's the guy that lost to Fischer. That's what everybody kind of associates him with. But of course, he was the world champion and an absolute legend of attacking. We're going to go through a few of his games today, including this one, which I would say is probably his most impressive game. Starting with b3, not a move you see much, which you see is called the Nimzo Larsen attack. And here we are playing Bent Larsen, Grandmaster, a top 10 player in the world. So the idea is pretty obvious, to develop the bishop on this fianchetto quickly. And remember, these are elite level players. So Spassky is the world champion at the time of this game, and Larsen is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in the world, something around that level. So really impressive stuff. Think of the top guys today playing Magnus. Okay, e3, and already black has achieved something really, really good in this opening. It's 7 moves in. This pawn is established and strong. Black has better control of the center. So when you see the fireworks begin, it's not coming out of complete thin air. Black already has a good position. And that reminds me of Fischer's quote that is very, very important to understanding chess and getting better, that tactics flow from a superior position. Okay, remember, tactics flow from a superior position. I like the use of the word flow instead of tactics come from a superior. It's nice. It makes more sense with a nice use of the language. So really, this game is really indicative of that. Black has a great position and tactics just flow. Your opponent's position gets harder. F4, really trying to kind of cement things or make us make a decision. Notice en passant is a big mistake due to queen takes f5, which is check. And then we'll recapture the pawn in turn. So Spassky plays knight g4, a really good move and kind of sensing I've already castled. It's time to attack. He was an attacking player. Again, not just the guy that lost to Fischer. So let's see. h5. It's an attack. We really don't have any other pieces to develop. This rook is excellent on the nearly completely open file. Bishop, queen, bishop, knight. Everyone's doing a good job. This rook a little less, but it's the rook in the corner. It naturally comes out last. h3, and here is the moment. I'll actually remind everyone, this was a team tournament. The Soviet Union versus the rest of the world. An interesting fact, Spassky was board 1, Larsen board 1, and Bobby was board 2. Interesting here, 1970, Bobby would be champion 2 years later against Spassky, of course, but Bobby's board 2 in this epic match, USSR versus the world. And I believe the Soviets actually did win this match. And this game, very important, although I assume it ended pretty quickly here, so as it's over in just 5 more moves. h3, and again, you think he has to move the knight. But Spassky comes up with a brilliant move, h4. And all of this is really based on the overall assessment that White's king is in danger. Put it simply, White's king is in danger. You're a few moves from castling, at least knight and castles. So h4, and watch what happens. He takes that piece, it's free. H takes g3. You will actually pay with the king's life, though, unfortunately. Here, if you capture this rook, of course, rook will take back. And this is nearly checkmate. Notice how strong this pawn is, as if it's snuck to the other side. Think of a spy of sorts that's made it into the other team's territory. So that move is out. Larsen plays rook g1 and says, really, is this one little guy going to beat me? I'm about to take it. And here is where Spassky really takes another step just into the incredible. Only these type of moves, I would say, a few times in a career, and you know they're associated with the great attacking players, Tal, Kasparov, and Spassky, of course, belongs in that category. Rook h1. Are you kidding me? What would you do if you saw that move land in front of you? Incredible understanding. Well, he just captures, as you might expect. g2, this pawn is taking on an army. It's incredible. Of course, the queen is a big player in all this, but at the moment, this pawn is the only black piece making a threat that's attacking. It's taking on everything, and we've sacrificed a rook. Rook f1? What else? If rook g1, which would kind of be the natural thought, queen h4 check. The only legal move is king d1. You don't have any other option. And then a couple good moves here, but let's just say queen h1. This rook cannot even be protected. You can't guard it. So, and of course, if you take the queen, we promote. Another queen shows up right there in his place. So incredible combination. He plays rook f1, trying to survive. Queen h4, and G takes f1 check on the 17th move. G takes f1 check on the 17th move. That's not too common in chess. So here, Larsen resigned. You're, of course, only taking, and then bishop takes g4. You move the queen. Our queen slides in. If bishop blocks, queen h1 is checkmate right on the spot. An incredible move. Highlighted really by these two moments. h4, the concept, I think he'd already worked this all out. And then rook h1, absolutely stunning. So now you have a little taste. Let's see, again with the black pieces. Really, attacking players, I think, have a slight edge when they just get into the fight. It doesn't matter what color you are. So the grinding positional players, of which I count myself these days, I would say they don't win as much with black. But an aggressive player almost balances the scorecard, because when you get into the middle of a chaotic game, that first move doesn't much matter anymore. So here we go. Interesting move, knight h6, and this Sicilian type position. What does that really do? Not a move I would recommend, but it does keep some pressure here on the knight in the center. Whereas if this knight had come out this way, that would be blocked. Bishop e2 and f5. Another big difference. The knight is typically in front of that pawn. So this move makes a lot more sense. Very interesting variation here, which looked like a Sicilian, but one you don't see much. E takes f5. Bishop takes d4. And this is deep understanding. Again, you would almost assume knight takes pawn is a given. But bishop takes. And why bishop? Well, let's really take a look at the next moves. He plays bishop takes. You could also take this knight, and here I would assume rook takes f5. And the material is back to equal, but we have some pretty active pieces. A dynamic position. Castles, I assume, is coming next. Obviously, that was a choice, but he plays here, knight takes f5, and now the game pretty balanced. Black's pawns are organized, d6, and knight f d4. I think the next moves really make the game chaotic. Bishop f5. Okay, usually you think white is safe. Okay, what is this game you're showing us, Chris? A miniature or what? But you'll see that he slowly coordinates the pieces. Rook f7, rook a f8, and now with every piece playing. It's so interesting to me that each generation of chess players and world champions, they really absorb the lessons of the past and they get better and better. So by this time, the lessons of Morphy and Alekhine and Capablanca all have been taken into account, and the next step has been taken. Botvinnik, and now Spassky has every piece organized, awake, king is safe, understands the positional and tactical elements. It's just so nice to see. E5. I like that natural move cementing in the center, and white tries for some flank attacks. You can see the Chess.com engine kind of balking at some of the moves, but they're very natural, and that's why I like the old classical games better. Here comes a flurry of attacks by white. Bishop e6, bishop d3, and white starts to go a little wrong here. Immediately taking advantage, bishop g4. A nice move, which seems so natural, and you say, oh, I just move the queen, until you realize the queen leaving the king's side of the board will be very dangerous. I think he just overlooked after f3. Black isn't moving here. Instead, bishop takes f3. The king is going to be so open after this sacrifice, and it's not a big sacrifice, folks. One pawn we just took. We lose the bishop, and then a second pawn. 2 pawns for a bishop, so we lose 1 point. But look at this king on the run. King h1, queen h3. How are you feeling with white pieces? 2 rooks and a knight and a queen all bearing down on you. Rook f2, a blunder, trying to guard, checkmate, but a stunning move shows up, and the best move by far, knight e1. I don't know how that didn't get a brilliancy. Knight e1. What's the point of that? If rook moves away, this is checkmate on the spot. Easy enough to see that. If you take this knight, rook takes rook, winning material, but more importantly, threatening checkmate, threatening this bishop. It's just really going to be checkmate. Queen f3 is also threatened for checkmate. So it's really, really scary, and black is just winning. Okay, real game went 91, and here White resigned. Just nothing to do. Let's move on to the next one. David Bronstein. We're with the wide pieces now, and if you were to choose two players to have who's going to have an aggressive game, these two might be at the top of the list. And F4 and the Gambit and the King's Gambit accepted. Knight F3, the most important way to stop this check, and D5, a combative central move. So not sure on the theory up to date these days, but this game, which was played in 1960, is probably the same type of concept. We want to keep this pawn as best we can. Maybe this knight ends up moving out this way. And overall, it's just a dynamic game with an open F file and open lines of attack. So exactly what a player like Spassky is looking for. Knight E4 and C4. I love the mobile pawn center. Again, you can see these pawns both able to take a step in a moment. Tempo moves are gold. And Knight E3, that's a knight we have to capture. Otherwise, our queen and rook were under attack. And C5, bishop C2. Can you guess what move is on the agenda next after bishop C2? Well, hopefully you're thinking about, like Spassky, queen D3. That's going to set up this classic queen and bishop battery. Let's see it. Rook E8, queen D3. Now, if the knight were to move, we would be uncovering queen threatening to come here. That's how chess tactics are set up. It's a beautiful thing. Obvious to a strong player like Bronstein, but he's unable to do anything about it. E2. I'll distract you with this pawn. And Spassky really says, what pawn? Knight D6. Sad that this move is a blunder by today's standards. I had a note from an author that said one of the deepest sacrifices this side of the evergreen game. So stunning move on the board. Knight D6. What's the point? Well, again, any knight move would uncover the queen and bishop, and this square is on target. But don't play a move like Knight F6. You might be seeing a faulty tactic. It's check, and then I'll play the checkmate. But when knight captures back, that square H7 is now protected by the new knight that's placed there. So be careful. He goes this way, though. Knight D6. Ignore the double question marks. This game's a mess. Knight F8, which that guards checkmate. Okay. The engine gives bishop D6. Ice cold. Maybe the king has some room to scoot away now. Knight F8, that was the real game, and knight takes F7. Can you believe this? This rook is hanging with check, and instead we sacrifice another piece. So he does take it. Why not? Queen or rook. Rook takes F1, and bishop F5. What is going on? What is going on between these two titans? The queen is hanging. The king can just take it for completely free. Instead, he attacks our queen, but this bishop is completely free. Just a stunning turn of events. Let's take a moment and just look at king takes F7, as it was obviously possible. You'd think any knight move is good, and it is. Knight G5, Knight E5. Also bishop to B3. Very, very strong move. But let's play one of the natural moves like this that uncovers check, double check. The only legal move is king G8. And now you do have to play bishop to B3. Queen D5, bishop E6. You can see that black has major, major problems here. So, for example, bishop E6, we just take it. Capture, and queen H7 is checkmate. If you played king H8, we would play rook takes F8. Either piece captures back, and then queen H7 checkmate. Some classic remove the defender tactics there. All of that amounts to don't take this knight. Spassky was so good at attacking. Bishop F5, complete chaos on the board. Queen takes, queen D7, offering a trade. Remember, black has two rooks. We only have one. And the game is still quite a mess. Technically, black ahead in material. White doesn't want to trade, and a good lesson for those attacking players out there. If you are on the attack hunting the king, you want your queen on the board, right? Don't trade it away. Knight 3 to E5. Careful of the notation. And bishop B3. That's the move that we've been eyeing for a while. White is completely winning. You just don't have an escape square here. Notice H8 is covered by the knight. If you play king H7, probably queen F5, I think, will jar loose something else. You'll have to move the pawn in the way, for example. Hangs the bishop. Just a mess. Bishop takes E5. Knight takes E5. That's a discovered check. King H7. And he resigns after interesting move, but simple enough. Queen e4. What's the point of that move where it appears maybe we're not threatening anything immediately? But let's just play a completely blank move over here. The real threat is like this. Rook takes knight. Rook takes knight. Whichever capture is made, notice knight g6, the only legal move. And now this is a double check, and mate coming. So you cannot just capture our queen. Just a beautiful combination here. So when he plays queen e4, that just centralizes, covers key squares, covered. This knight is jumping to g6 the moment this knight is taken. So it's really, really over, and this is where Bronstein resigns. A stunning game. That one I really can't say enough, and the high-quality opponent makes it even more impressive. Last one here. This one is 1966, so still really around the height of Spassky's best days. And here playing with the white piece is the queen pawn opening. And we get an interesting kind of closed-down position. I don't know the level of black. This tournament was a Hastings tournament. But it's just an interesting dynamic when you trade a bishop for knight and then kind of lock the position away. And d6 kind of twists the game back to the complicated. Obviously, black is ready to play d6 himself. So Spassky says, hold on a second, we're going to make a mess of it. And I think there's a certain type of chess player out there that just thrives in chaos, that they'd rather see the game be made wild and unpredictable rather than just allow black to get the three nice central pawns. So Spassky is certainly in this category that likes it. Complicated, interesting, fun, weird things are going on, something to talk about, right? It's a fun and interesting game, something we don't see as often. So rook c1, the best move, supporting this weak pawn. Really interesting that nothing's moved on the king side. That changes in just a moment. Knight f3. Bishop takes e5. Not afraid of the king being stuck in the center. Both kings in the center here. Knight takes the d6 pawn, so it feels like black has achieved something. But after h4, you can see that white's eyes are on attacking. White really is essentially saying your king is in grave danger here on e8, and you don't have a place to go. Many moves from castling to the queen side, and castling to the king side all of a sudden feels very, very scary. So where's black king going to go? He captures, and I like the next move, just a simple e3. Instead of retaking the pawn, which isn't going anywhere, let's be honest, he prioritizes developing another piece, because the more pieces that participate, the better. Rook, queen, knight, bishop, and hopefully just don't let this rook drop. b6, a natural reaction. Rook d1, every piece is playing. Let's just point out the last couple moves. h4, that's helping this rook. e3, that's helping this bishop. And rook d1, that's helping this rook. And now all the pieces with an extra move towards them. Knight b7. Knight takes f7. What a move. Here, king takes. It's hard to suggest anything else as the king side just explodes. Queen takes. Now, what's interesting about this is black, although the queen is locked out here, is always threatening to take here with check. So remember, black is up a minor piece and with a threat of this. So I love the way that Spassky is precise with checks and simultaneously keeps this guarded the whole time. Watch what he does here. King g7, check, which guards this one and hits the king. King g8, rook takes h4. We don't have to worry about this pawn for a moment. Remember, h4, capture, and we didn't take it back. Now everything comes in succession, like a flurry of punches, like a boxer. d6 hits the queen, but also guards this rook from checking the king. Super scary, but there's got to be mate here with the big pieces all around, the king with no protection, and Spassky finds the best move. Queen g3 check. You can't play king h7 as bishop d3 leads to mate on the next move. You have to go to the f file. King f7, rook f4, almost doing the ladder checkmate here in the middle game. King e8, and the final move, queen g7. Remember, keeping an eye on his own camp, simultaneously hitting the rook, which has nowhere to go. And that's all she wrote. We're just taking this rook on the next move. The king might start running, but then we're actually just ahead in material. So a stunning game. And really, I would say Spassky right around his peak level here. So this was a nice game. And I really like the moves, again, h4, e3, and rook d1. And then the punches come in bunches. Every piece is ready, boom, 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 and it's over. Really, like I said, precise, impressive, and a tidal wave of tactics in this one. Wow. Okay. So hopefully we have a little more knowledge about Mr. Boris Spassky. He was not just the guy that lost to Fischer, and really had some impressive games. Obviously, he was even winning in that World Championship match, which is worth incredible study. If you haven't seen much of it, the 72 Fischer Spassky match, still for my money, the greatest match, most important match in chess history. So thank you all again. And again, I remind everyone what we really like to do on this channel is find some interesting games, hopefully some you haven't seen, and learn from the great masters of the past. We'll do some other chess training and interesting stuff, but mostly that's what we're going to stick with. All right. Thanks again, everybody, and appreciate you viewing, subscribing, commenting, and in general, just interacting with the channel. So thanks again, and have a great day.